Hello. Am I live? Maybe. Maybe not. Let's see. I think. Maybe. Howdy. I am alive. Okay, so I have to remember, first of all, that this is the camera that I need to look at because my other one was not working. Could not get it to work. And secondly, I need to remember that um, I don't know what's going to go with the music. Maybe I'm going to have music at the beginning. Maybe I'm going to have it at the end. I don't even know. But anyway, today's message is two voices. And here's what I mean by that. Last week we were talking about, I'm not even sure. Yeah, you guys can hear me, right? Okay, thank you. All right, so last week we were talking about how fate draws you to what, not fate, God, but you can call it fate if you want to. That ever presence that you know is there, trying to get you to do what's right, trying to that conscious, that still small voice inside you. That we call it, the Christian people call it the Holy Spirit. Um, that voice that tries to lead you in the direction that is the best place for you. And I call him God and I call his son Jesus Christ. But you don't have to in order to believe. You don't have to in order to be a believer. And it took me a long time to figure that out. But that's true. It's true. Jesus, Jesus has people that don't call him by the same name I call him. And what he's looking for is people with faith. He's looking for people who believe. So if you are a believer and you are a seeker, then he is for you, and I am for you. So anyway, the title of this is Two Voices. And last week we were talking about how you have two voices inside your head, and sometimes, like if you're like me, you have many, and and the voices tell you something different than what God is telling you. And today I'm going to talk about how to discern between the two. So, welcome to today's program. I'm sorry I didn't have any music, and I'm sorry that also that this I'll be looking at the wrong camera all morning or all afternoon rather, but hey, I'm on my 18th or 19th show, and me failing at one thing or another is still perfectly legal and might be legal for the rest of the time that I ever do this. Who knows? My name is Amanda McDowell. I am a mentor teacher at my school. I'm a DJ. I'm a speaker, a reverend, a singer songwriter, a moral live stream vlogographer. That means I do I'm an autobiographer on video. And the reason it has moral before it is because I am not just throwing stuff out there. Oh well, this happened in my life and that happened in my life. There's not anything that happened in my life that does not have a meaning, and it doesn't have a lesson for me, and hopefully a lesson for you. So I am trying to teach you, my children, how, what, when, where, who, and to keep you out of the trouble that I got into pretty much all my life. So that is my purpose. Let me use these. My purpose is to encourage you to take responsibility for who you are and what you believe, what God has told you. Choose to believe what God has told you and walk in it. So today's quote, talking about two voices. Okay, so I'm going to grab the Bible here. And back in the day when Jesus was walking the earth, he had this disciple, and his name was Simon. But Jesus changed his name to Peter. And I'm not really sure what Simon means, but Peter means a rock. That means somebody that's unchangeable. Okay? So Peter must have changed his mind a lot when he was younger. He must have thought one thing and then thought another, which Don't we all have that problem? What? This is about two voices. You're going to believe this or you're going to believe that. And so Peter is a perfect example of what I'm talking about because Peter said something really smart in Matthew chapter 16, 18. If you feel like, or I'm going to start back at 15. Jesus said, "Who do you say?" He said to them, "Who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter." So he's changing his name right now. I'm going to change your name. That's pretty important when God changes your name. I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. On this rock, meaning that I am the Son of God, on this one truth that you know, I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed on heaven. Man, Peter just had it made. He was given the keys of the kingdom. Whatever you say is going to happen, Peter. I'm so proud of you, my son. You are the one that knows the truth. I'm going to build my church on the rock. I'm going to call you the rock. You are the man. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Then he sternly ordered the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. And from that time on, Jesus starts talking about how he's going to have to die on the cross. How, and he says, from that time on, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and undergo great suffering at the hands of the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside. So Peter still thinks he's the man. And he says, he began to rebuke him, saying, "God forbid it, Lord. This must never happen to you." But he turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." And so, same chapter, Peter's believing one thing. This dude is the Son of God. And then when the Son of God starts telling him stuff that he doesn't want to hear, stuff where, I don't know if you know this or not. I don't know if you know the Bible, but the disciples thought that the kingdom of God was going to be made manifest while Jesus was walking the earth. Like he was going to take the kingdom on the earth was going to be his, and they would rule with him. And the moms even thought that because the mom was like, the mom of James and John were like, when you come into your kingdom, can James sit on the right hand and John sit on the left? And Jesus is thinking the kingdom of heaven, but these people didn't understand that. Now, we understand it because he died, rose on the third day, went up to heaven, and yeah, he means heaven. But a lot of people were very confused when Jesus wound up dying, especially Peter, because Peter ran away after he denied him 3 times. So he was wishy-washy. He wanted to believe, but he didn't really believe. But isn't that like how we are? Aren't we wishy-washy? We want to believe what God tells us, and yet we're seeing all these things that say, no. If that was going to happen, it would have already happened. You need to get your head straight. That is never going to happen. That's not really how God meant it. Okay, so these are the 2 voices in our heads. And let's go back to what I told you previously last week in the target draws the arrow. And I said that the indigenous people of the United States of America, Native Americans, said one tribe, and I wish somebody would get up on here later and tell me which tribe it is, said that there were 2 wolves living inside man, and the wolf that wins is the wolf that you feed. And so here is Jesus giving you some kind of promise, and here is Satan trying to finagle, or your own mind, your own doubts, trying to finagle and figure out how this is going to work in the earth. Now, I think that's our biggest problem because we're still thinking that it's going to happen in the earth. Near the last one I told you, the last live stream, I said that the Lord told me that I was going to have 10,000 children. Well, maybe He doesn't mean 10,000 children on this earth. Maybe there's going to be 10,000 children up in heaven that say, "Hey, you influenced my life." Wouldn't that just, man, that would probably be even better, because then all those 10,000 children would really mean it. And it would be like that forever. I'd have 10,000 children up in heaven. That's an even better thought. But don't we get captivated with our earthly life? And doesn't sometimes God mean something that's going to happen here? Like, for instance, when He promised to Abraham He was going to have a son, I'm sure that Abraham, by the time he was 90 years old, was thinking, "Oh, yeah, well, okay, maybe He meant Sarah. Maybe you're right, Sarah. Maybe God means that I'm going to have a baby through your slave." And so He has a son, which was not of God, called Ishmael. Now, God could have done a billion things. God could have shut that servant girl's womb. And when I say servant girl, she was literally a slave. If Sarah gave her to her 90-year-old husband, that was that. She was about to have sex with a 90-year-old man that she had known as her master for the past 30, 40, however old she was, 20, 30 years. So that's that's a whole another live stream. So let's put away that idea for a minute and get to the promise that God told Abraham. He said, "You're going to have a son." And so Abraham waits and waits and waits 30 years, 40 years, and now he's 90. And he's like, we're past childbearing age. And Sarah, when the angels came to visit her finally, this was after Ishmael was born. This is when they tried to solve that promise themselves. And that is the biggest mistake we can make, is try to solve the promise ourselves. Because that's when we get into Ishmaels. And literally, an Ishmael, and I'm not saying anything against Ishmael, it wasn't Ishmael's fault. Was it Ishmael's fault that he was born? But nevertheless, basically Ishmael and Israel have been fighting each other ever since. So when I say you don't want an Ishmael in your life, you don't want something that's going to fight the promise for the rest of millennium until Jesus comes back to truly rule and reign. Anyway, but that's what we do. We try to figure out how this promise, we were told this fantastic thing. Peter was told, "You have been given the kings of the kingdom. What you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. What you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." Man, there's so many things I'd like to bind up on earth as it is in heaven, and loose on earth like it is in heaven. I probably would never stop praying if I thought for 1 second that I had all that power. And you know what? It says in the Bible that we really do, so I must not believe it. That's a whole nother live stream. So let's get back to two voices. Either you believe it and you just have to keep seeking it and finding it until it comes to pass, or you start seeking and finding it, figuring out how on earth it's going to happen. And when we start doing that, see, Peter, that's what his big mistake was. That's when Jesus said, "Get thee behind me, Satan," because he was trying to figure out how it was going to roll. He was going to help out the dream a little bit. So I'll tell you a perfect example of my own failure and how I nearly messed up my own dream, or I nearly messed up the plan God had for me. the Lord said when I was separated from my first husband, had a 15-month-old, a 4-year-old, didn't have a degree, was 28 years old, didn't know how I was going to make a living, how I was going to, thought my life was over. My husband didn't want me. Uh, he had decided that he wanted cocaine instead. And that happened to a lot of people back in the 80s. And he said, don't make me look too bad in divorce court. So I'm sitting at my mama's house and I'm crying and I'm thinking my life is over and I'm praying. And the Lord said, I'm going to give you this place. And when he said, I'm going to give you this place, my mom lived because she passed away in 2001. She lived on 2.5 acres on lakefront property in Louisiana. It's the second largest man-made lake in Louisiana, Lake D'Arbonne. So my very first thought was not gratitude, because I believed as soon as the Lord spoke it through my heart, and I was actually reading the word when I said it, like leaped off the page and into my spirit, said, I'm going to give you this place. I said, it's a lot to mow. Because I was wondering, how in the world am I going to take care of this 15-month-old, this 18-month-old, and this 2.5 acres of property? And I can't even make a living for myself. How am I going to do that? How am I going to have the time? So I was not appreciative. I was not thanking Jesus. But as time went on, and the older I got, the more I realized what a blessing it would really be. And I started, my mom started to fail in health in terms of she started to get Alzheimer's. And I knew that's what the Lord had told me. The Lord not only told me that one time, but he told me that a couple of times. And by this time I was now remarried, my children were older, and my mom was starting to fail in health, in her mind. And so I thought, and I'm not going to tell you who, but someone pressured me to think this, okay? That the Lord wanted me to go and have my mom declared incompetent, and then she had already given me power of attorney, so the judge would give me executorship over her things, and that would be how I would be living at the house. Now, here's what would happen if that had taken place. Had that taken place, well, let me go ahead and tell you what happened first. On my way to the courthouse, after being coaxed into believing this, I wrecked my mom's car. I ran a red light because I was going the wrong direction. I ran a red light and got hit. I got sideswiped in my mother's Cadillac. Now, I cannot tell you how sorry I was that I had started chasing something that somebody else had talked me into. But as soon as I got sideswiped, I knew exactly why that had happened. And when I got home, and when I told my mom, and when I told this person, I said, I will not pursue that again. I said, that is not the way to go. I am not going to have my mom interdicted. Either the Lord said this or he didn't. But I'm going to let the Lord do it. I'm not having her interdicted. And so I left it completely up to the Lord. Now, got the Cadillac fixed. Everything was okay. My mom never knew that I was on my way to do that. I never told her because I was ashamed of myself. And I was ashamed that I had not believed that God could either do it or not. I was ashamed that I had listened to that other person. Okay, so time goes on. A few years ago, 4 or 5 years. And my mom has now gotten worse. And then she calls me and she says, Amanda, I think I should sell this property because I can't take care of it anymore. And I was like, well, Lord, didn't say anything to her. But I knew what the Lord had told me. But I had to be honest with my mom because it was too much for her. I knew she couldn't handle it anymore. And she said, should I sell it? I said, Mom, it has gotten too much for you. And yes, you should sell it. Because I had to be honest. And I had to tell myself, if this is God, if God really wants me to have this property, then somehow it's going to come to me. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going behind my mama's back. I am going to stand on what I know is right. And she was actually offered the price that she was asking like 2 days after she put it on the market, and was about to sell was about to sell the house, and she backed out of the contract. Now, for those of you who know anything about real estate, you're not supposed to be able to do that. And yet the people were gracious, and they changed their minds, and they let her out of the contract. And so we were back to her having the house being too much to her, too much for her. Time continues to go on. And I am now going to my mom's house at least once a month, cleaning up what I can clean up. I'm helping her. The house is turning into a wreck because my mom can't take care of herself. And I'm worried about her. I'm praying about her. I'm like, Lord, what is going on? My mom can't even take care of herself anymore. I'm worried about her. I'm scared she's going to get lost. But here's the thing about God. He loved my mother. He loved her. He knew that what she loved the most was her freedom. And she didn't want to be a burden on somebody else. And so he waited until the very last for her, not for me. Hold on. Ignore this. It comes and goes. Okay, I cry. Get over it. This is who I am. Ignore it. Turn the channel if you can't take it. But when I tell these stories, they're true. So, the day comes, and my brother calls me. He says, Amanda, you need to do something with Mom. She can't be by herself anymore. Now, right prior to this, maybe about 6 months, I had been praying so hard because I was so torn about what to do about my mom. And a random guy who went to my church came up to me and said, I know you're worrying about your mom, and the Lord says, don't worry about her, because when the time comes, there won't be a doubt in your mind that it's time. And this is what I want to convey to you. That's the whole point of this story. If the Lord has told you something, when the time comes, there won't be a doubt in your mind. But sometimes it's waiting and believing and occupying and trusting and walking forward in what He's got for you at the moment. But you cannot let go of the dream that He's told you, and you can't fix it yourself, because if you can fix it yourself, it's not necessarily God. That's you doing it. And you might wind up with an Ishmael if you do. So when you're listening to these two voices, oh, and by the way, when I arrived, when my brother called me and I arrived, and there's another little story in there, but I'll make this short. These are the words she said to me. She said, if you take care of me, I'm going to give you this house. And I didn't have to pray about it. I already knew that's what I was supposed to do. We went to her lawyer. She had the papers drawn up. We went to a doctor. We had her declared competent the very same day. She was having a great day. She was having a great day. She was having a very lucid, very aware, very conscious of everything she was doing day. And it all happened like that. It all happened in one day. Because, first of all, the Lord had to stop me. And secondly, I finally got it into my head that if it was real, it had to be God. And God had to do it all. So here's the thing. When you're listening to your two voices, wait on God. Wait on God. Because when it's God, there won't be a doubt in your mind that it's Him and it's time. and that this is it. Y'all have a great day. My name is Amanda McDowell. I hope you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I don't know what has happened to my music. Wait, no, it's.
I remember way back when, just like it's happening again. I told somebody what I thought the Lord had spoken.